It's Riff Arcade. I'm Josh. He's Butts. Today I'm playing Lego Lord of the Rings, but this is going to be a little different of an episode. This is going to be one of our more podcasty episodes, if you will.
Beating up shrubs.
Yeah. Take that, Bush. Because we wanted to talk a little bit about Rush, and especially Neil Peart. Unfortunately, we just learned, just a few days ago, we're recording this on Sunday, so we just learned a couple of days ago that Neil Peart, drummer for the band Rush, unfortunately passed away of brain cancer earlier in the week, which is very sad. And Butts and I were in a band together, the Ron Johnsons, and we actually covered several Rush songs. Butts himself is a drummer and learned a lot from Neil Peart. So we just kind of wanted to take this episode to just do sort of a tribute, just take 10 minutes or so to just talk about Mr. Peart and what he meant to us. So, Butts, you being a drummer, I imagine you would have a lot more to say even about it than I would.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the first thing I'll say is I'm always going to say Neil Peart because that's just what I learned his name as.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, Neil. I'm just like that's a habit I can't break. But yeah, I think that every drummer respects and likes Neil's drumming. He might not be everyone's favorite, but every drummer goes like, "Oh yeah, no, that guy could play.
Yeah.
Like that guy could just throw down." And you're always impressed. You're like, "Wow, I've never heard a rock drummer play like that before." Even if he wasn't your favorite, he was at least on your list of like, oh yeah, this is a guy that could just flat out play.
Right. And I mean, first off, I also meant to say the reason we're playing Lord of the Rings is that I know Neil was a huge fan of Tolkien's works, and that inspired a lot of his lyrics, even.
Yeah, if y'all don't know, Neil wrote the lyrics for Rush, so he was their lyricist too. He wasn't just their drummer.
Yes, that is correct. And for those of you that don't know as much about Rush, they were a progressive band throughout like the 70s, 80s, well, pretty much up until now.
Yeah.
Starting back in the 70s. And so yeah, they were very progressive, very kind of out there. If you know anything about a lot of progressive bands from back then, like the 70s and early 80s, a lot of their music was based on like high fantasy, or at least every now and then a song would be. So that's one of the reasons.
Far more high fantasy references than your everyday band.
Yes, yeah.
Not a lot of Tolkien references in Fallout Boy, so.
Yeah, Hoobastank's not going to lay down a Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. But I think that's another thing about like Rush music, progressive bands in general, as I think on the Venn diagram of people who play video games and people who listen to progressive rock music, I bet there's a little more overlap there than you'd think.
Yeah, and I've heard Rush the band be put as like the world's like most famous like fan band. Like people are like, oh yeah, I like this band, but like there's like a certain type of person that likes Rush.
Yeah. Well, I've heard it as Rush is like a musician's band. So they're a band for musicians. So typically you'll have a lot of people who themselves are in bands or were in like marching band in high school or something like that. And those people always really dig Rush's music because of the way all the music and lyrics are written and the complexity of it. I mean, Rush isn't an easy band to cover.
No, they are not. Good God.
So about
I'll brag a little bit on us, but like, yes. So Josh, as Josh said, me and him in the band that we were in, we did cover Rush songs. And I mean, like, we covered them well. Like, we were playing them as note to note as we could.
Yeah.
And I know it took me 3 months to learn how to play Subdivisions.
Yeah.
That's a hard song if you know a Rush song. That's a hard one.
It is difficult.
And what I had to do was I don't know if I've ever told you this. I had to actually get 3 copies of the song Subdivisions, and on one copy I muted it after a certain point in the song. So like the first 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something, I had it, and then I stopped it there. And then the next copy, I muted it before that point. So I cut the song in half. And so like for a month and a half, I studied the first half of the song, and then a month and a half after that, I studied the second half until I could play it all the way through on the third copy.
That's awesome.
That's what I had to do to learn Subdivisions.
So, Butts, as a drummer, what would you say about Neil's drumming itself made it so enjoyable to listen to and to play?
Well, Josh, I got real podcasty there.
Yeah, I did.
I think that like the thing with Neil's drumming is that if you're a drummer, you can pick out like, okay, this is the things he's doing. These are the rhythms he's playing. These are the choices he's making. Here's why he did that, and you could really dissect it and find value and a lesson to learn and be like, oh, I could take that into my own drumming. So if you're a drummer, you can really pick apart what he's doing and see the virtuosity in it. But if you're just a regular person, he also still leads you through the song very easily. Like my wife has no rhythm at all, but she can follow and clap along to Rush songs that I know as a drummer are in crazy, ridiculous time signatures.
Right.
Like what is it Free Will? The Free Will, we're going to get musical here for a second. In Free Will, I think that the time signature alternates between like six beats in a measure to 7 beats in a measure, back to 6 beats, and then back to 8. So it's every measure, it's changing. But if you're just listening, it's a very cool Rush song. But if you're listening, you never get lost. You never know where the beat, like you never are confused. You can clap and tap and sing along, even if you don't know rhythm or what I'm talking about. I think that's one of the best things is that like he could break down these really hard things, and if you don't know anything about music, you can follow along. But if you do know about music, you get that extra layer of, oh my God, this is what's going on.
That's true, because it's like, I know for me, once you explained that to me, I remember you told me that a while back, and I went back and listened to Free Will, and I was like, dun, 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 you know, like counting the beats in my head, and I was just like, that is what it is. That's so cool. So it's good to listen to initially, and then once you know it, once you know what he's going for, it's even better.
Yeah, Rush is one of those bands that they are as deep as you want them to be. So if you just like, I just want a good song, they'll give you a good song. But if you want to dig deeper, they've got layers to go deeper, and a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say a lot of that's, well, a third of that is Neil.
Yeah.
Exactly 1/3.
Exactly. Yes, there are 3 members in the band.
Yep. And that's the other crazy part about the band. There's only 3 guys making all that sound and
oh my gosh.
complexity. So, holy crap, how are you doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I know Geddy, as a bassist, I know Geddy Lee has really influenced me in my playing. So, I mean, I can only, that's how I've tried to kind of imagine what it's like for you, is I'm like, okay, what if I had just gotten the news that Geddy Lee just died, and that would be really difficult.
Yeah. Well, it's like you love Tom Petty, so like if you spent, your entire musical career learning to play like Tom Petty, then you found out he died, you'd be like, oh, just
because it's weird. It's okay. I'll be honest. A lot of celebrities die, and I'm just like, well, that sucks, but that didn't affect me personally. But like Rush, they've affected me personally.
Yeah,
I've learned skills from them.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean, I think it's very good to say. I mean, Rush is good people. I mean, they're not just a good band. Those guys are outstanding, just people.
Yeah, they're
even
Canadians.
Neil.
They're great.
Yeah. Possibly, especially Neil.
Yeah. And anytime if you ever get a chance to hear Neil talk about stuff, even if it's just drumming, you'd be like, oh, this guy is just a a pool of knowledge. Like, this guy just knows everything. He's just one of those guys that you talk to and you're just like, well, you're just good at everything. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of thing. He reads voraciously. He drums without mercy. You're just like, okay, you're just good at everything. And you're just a nice, swell guy. He's a very private guy, but...
He is. I remember reading in an interview, or I saw in an interview one time, I think Getty and Alex were being interviewed, the other two members of the band, and they were just kind of talking about how reserved Neil is, and, not that he's like mean or angry about it or anything, but they said it, they put it in a very good way. They said, if you see Alex or I just on the street, like, yes, like, come say hi. We want to say hello. We want to hear what you think about the band, etc., etc. But they said, if you see Neil, if Neil's in a restaurant enjoying dinner and he's with his wife, like, just leave him be. That's how he likes to enjoy his fame. And he's just more reserved. He doesn't like the fame quite as much, or the attention, I should say.
Yeah.
But
he never really got it. He's like, he enjoys, being, I don't want to say copied, but he enjoys being an influence on people and the adulation they say. But he's just like, look, I'm just a guy. Like, don't put too much stock in me.
Yeah, which, again, it was sad when we all heard he had passed. But the fact that he died on Tuesday and no one even knew until Friday, much less the fact that he even had brain cancer at all. He had been battling it quietly for 3 years, I think it said in a thing I read. And I just thought, isn't that just so Neil?
That's on brand. Yeah.
It is on brand. Like, that's the Neilest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. So I don't know how much longer we have. Before we end, can I put somebody on blast here? Just like really just ream out somebody?
Sure.
I got beef with Sarah. No, so what I've always been angry at is that, I don't know when it was, but Rolling Stone, the magazine, put out a article about like the 50 greatest rock drummers of all time. Mm-hmm. And it's garbage. It's utter garbage. Like, I want to take that article and just beat whoever wrote it in the head with it. Because, first off, what is it? Who is it? I think the drummer from Tool doesn't even get on the list, and the drummer for Tool is amazing.
Yes.
And the list is just so screwed up. There's people that I'm like, some of it is opinion, and some people you could say like, oh yeah, I would put them ahead of this other person. But some of it's like, no, this, drummer A is way better than drummer B, and he's lower in the list. So the angriest, one of the reasons I hate that list is because Neil doesn't even make it into the top 3. He's the number 4 greatest drummer of all time, and that is complete nonsense.
He should have the top 3 spaces.
Yes, he should have at least 4 spaces on his own. It's stupid. I know, like, the top drummer was Ginger Baker on Cream.
Okay.
And that's dumb. Like, Ginger Baker's a fine drummer, but he is not the best. Like, that's just like, for some reason, Rolling Stone has this fascination with the band Cream. And I'm like, no, Ginger Baker is not better than Neil Peart. He's not better than John Bonham, who was the number 2 drummer. He's not better than the 2. Like, there's so many drummers that Ginger Baker is not better than.
And especially of all, Neil Peart.
Yeah, like, Neil has to be, he's got to be, like, the lowest he could be is 2. Like, maybe 3. I might give you 3. But, like, no. Number 4 that's inexcusable. I'm just like, okay, well, you have no idea what you're talking about now.
I agree with that. 100%. Like, you could make the sign of you sitting behind the thing, the table that says, Neil Peart is the best drummer of all time. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, prove me wrong. Yeah, like they have, I pulled up the list right now. They have Buddy Rich as number 15, and Ringo Starr is number 14. And look, I will give more credit to Ringo than a lot of people. Ringo is not better than Buddy Rich at all. It's not even close. I'm just like, have you actually seen these people drum? Because I don't think you've actually seen these people drum.
Oh, and we're running. Okay. Well,
Oh, good.
Yeah, so you folks at home, if you know who we're talking about, if you love the band, please do just over the next week. Just listen to some Rush. Listen to those tasty Neil Peart drum licks and fills. And for those of you who don't, I guarantee you've heard a Rush song at some point in your life. You can't listen to classic rock for 30 minutes without hearing like Tom Sawyer or Spirit of Radio, something like that.
Yeah, go find the Futurama episode where they play the video games. There's a Rush song in there. My Rush mixtape. Josh, really quick, what's your favorite Rush song? Like, that might be a hard one.
That is a hard one. I really like Subdivisions because it's very fun to play on the bass, even though technically he doesn't play bass for half that song. He plays keyboard, but I really like Subdivisions. YYZ is really fun to listen to and play. Gosh.
I think Spirit of the Radio is my favorite.
Spirit of the Radio is really good. That's definitely up there for me.
It goes so many places.
I like Tom Sawyer is probably the world's generic favorite Rush song, although it's not my favorite. It's a little slower paced than I would like. Like not quite as heavy on the instruments, but it's more of a riff song. Let me get out of the screen so I can think. But yeah, those are all really good ones. Especially, I'll say Subdivisions.
Okay, that's a solid one. That's
what I'll say.
That one's got some weird time changes in it too, if you ever figure it out.
Yeah, I remember when we performed Subdivisions with the Ron Johnsons. I think Spence sang it, and then I think all I did was I just had the mids turned way up on my vocal effects pedal, and all I said was Subdivisions. Like there's a part in the song where there's just a background voice that goes Subdivisions, and so that's it. That was my only line in the song, and the very first time we ever performed it, I missed it. I forgot to say it. But you caught me too. I remember you caught me after the gig. You were like, I didn't hear you say Subdivisions.
Yeah, I was like, Josh, you had one job with one word, and you missed it.
But to be fair, I was focusing on playing that bass part for the first time too.
Yeah, I said it jokingly because I was like, "That's a hard bass." I don't blame you if you shut your mouth off to focus all your brain power on your bass.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've made it to Bree. We didn't quite make it to Rivendell, which is the song Rush actually wrote a song about. Neil specifically wrote a song about. But
what song is that?
Well, it's from one of their first few albums. It's not a
well-known one.
It's from it's a deep cut from one of their more progressive earlier albums. But they have a song called Rivendell, and it's about Lord of the Rings. Yeah, let's give that one a listen. As you think of Neil fondly. And so guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to our tribute to Neil Peart, even though it might have been a little off-brand for Riff Arcade. To Butts and I, it was right on point, so we just wanted to talk about it. So we'll see you next time on Riff Arcade. Thanks for watching.
Yep. Keyboards and guitar and drums. Go!
I wish so much I could like fade to a Rush song right there, but you know.